Hey everybody, this is the devlog for CP payload Gavle A3. I've got a bit of a cold. I'm kind of on the end of it. That's why things have slowed down for a few weeks here. But I'm going to do my best because I really want to make this video and get this out and start working on this again. So real quick, we're going to go over the changelog. Probably the biggest thing is that I completely rebuilt this back area from what it used to be. I was trying to streamline things a little bit while maintaining the little sniper kind of area. Just in general simplified and made things a little less convoluted. Made things a slightly less of a run for blue. In testing, I feel like it's still not very utilized, so I think there's something I needed to work on it to try to emphasize it more, to try to make it a better route for blue, and I think I have some ideas for that. The other thing was the funny issue that I had on next to A was the really strong teleporter spot. I reduced the cover here a little bit. I kind of pulled down some of the walls. It seemed to help, and I think people know to look up there now. So things got a little bit better. I also improved cover on B for defenders a little bit, especially for a sentry nest kind of in this corner. I changed things up a little bit. Added some new walls here and there. May have overcorrected. In testing, it was very difficult to take B. I don't think it was... We played 4 rounds and it was never taken. So I may have overcorrected on that. That's going to be something we got to pay attention to. One adjustment I made, too, is there's a new hatch here that closes after A is captured. And then this door here closes really slowly. And kind of the thing I was talking about, there's a little kill trigger in here that I think is going to eventually flush players out if they get stuck in there. I did, however, mess up, and I didn't think about where the door was going to go. So, classic mistake. Doors move, and you have to pay attention to where they're going to move to. And since it starts open, it's in a play space. Whoops! I also kind of just adjusted health and ammo around the map. There's nothing really super of note. And then I also added some more time when you capture A to try to encourage attackers to take B a little bit more. So let's talk about how testing actually went. The big thing is it's very difficult for attackers. This is going to be a 2-stage map. This stage, the first stage, should be relatively easy because we want to get to the second stage. So right now it is a challenge to take A, but not impossible. It's a bit of a slog. You can eventually get there. There's some things that I definitely know I would like to fix for the next version. B, however, is extremely difficult to take. And there's a number of things that I'm noticing that are contributing to that. One is spawn times. Right now I kind of left them to the default settings. I think it was in the ABS pack where I grabbed the capture point logic from. I'm going to adjust that. Right now blue spawns way too slowly, and they can never quite build up the push they need to get past A and into B. The other big thing is I'm noticing defenders are managing to push back out of the B courtyard and into A territory. Ideally, after blue takes A, this whole area should just belong to them. There's going to be a little pushback here and there, but ideally this would be their territory. And I think the combination of the spawn time and then the longer run is making it so they can never quite get that hold, and they're constantly getting pushed back. I'm debating on making a forward spawn. I wanted to see if I could get away without doing it, because I think it's interesting to do that. But I'm thinking about if I put it up here, it gives them this higher ground that's very difficult for red to get to, and then I could also maybe open up a door through here that dumps out this way and kind of encourages this lower route as well. So like it would be closed until A is captured, and I really like the idea of making a dynamic map like that. When like points are captured, things change. Like obviously this door opens, things like that. But overall, I think the map is a little bit too complicated. I want to simplify it. I want to simplify things a ton. And I think there's going to be some hard cuts. Like I'm actually tempted to just completely get rid of this sewer route here and maybe axe it all the way up to, like, say, here. So there'd just be this little strip this way. And then to make it easier to get into this area here, make this more of just a straight-up entrance rather than a rather than this weird jump right now. To get to that whole side area, which is very strong for attackers, you have to go through this way, zigzag through here, come up, go this way, go up, around, and then you're up there. And in testing, I saw a really, really good hold here for attackers, but they never quite got the push out that they needed. And some of that could be spawn time, some of that could just be the nature of that specific game. You always have to keep that in mind, that there's a lot of variables at play. But I feel like if there's a really strong engineer hold in here and there's a really good team push, like, they should be able to take this point with all this high ground. And maybe it's just because there's only this one small door, and maybe I need to rethink that a little bit. I don't know. There's some things to think about up here, and I think this is a really dynamic, interesting area that could be expanded on. Now, it was a little easy to flank around for red if they are holding this territory really strong and they know they're up there. They can come this way and put pressure on it. So it's not going to be too strong, but that's a lot of really narrow, tight points that they have to manage to get through. And if blue is holding all this territory really well, then they're going to have a difficulty, or they're going to have a difficult time doing that. One risk with putting an entrance here is that red can push all the way through, and that gives them access to this way as well as kind of this underground area here. But if it's mostly relegated to this under area, I don't think it's going to be too bad. So it's going to be something we're going to experiment with. Overall, I think blue just does not have enough high ground. One other issue I saw is this single crate, which was that kind of micro gameplay I talked about before, that I just wanted to give, you know, something interesting to jump on here, a place for spies. I didn't really think about the fact that that gives you access to jump over this wall. Now, what that does for defenders is it gives them high ground. They can see this whole area, they can see up here, and it gives them high ground over anybody trying to push through this building into here, and it gives them access to walking through this building and pushing back. So right now, blue is just constantly fighting an uphill battle, and they have a really difficult time taking any ground and holding it, because there's always ways for red to get around. So I think removing this crate, maybe bumping this wall up a little bit, making it less of a feature of being able to just sit here. And, like, of course you're going to have soldiers that can kind of perch up here in demos. Previous versions, I had this clipped off. It was like a big chain link fence. That could possibly come back. I don't know yet. It could even be just like a partial one, so they can't get, like, when you're right here and you're going through a door, you can see somebody here, you can't see somebody here. So maybe if I just partially blocked it off and raised this up and made it so that was non-gameplay space and just cover, then that could help a little bit. And I think overall, I have to be careful not to overcorrect and over-adjust, but right now blue is fighting such an uphill battle that they need some kind of bone thrown to them. As people are learning the map more, they're learning how to defend better, it's getting harder. So that's it. That's kind of the adjustments I want to make to A. I think it's I'm gonna add a little bit more time on capture. I'm gonna lower the capture times a bit more. In general, I want this to be very easy for blue, but I don't want it to be just like a steamroll, like red has no chance of defending at all. And I think after they capture, I need to make sure they... Whoa. What's your problem? Yeah? She wants lunch. I think after they capture this area, they need to hold this area really strongly, and they need a lot of high ground, and I think that's maybe where, like, another route over here that opens up maybe gives a little bit of upper area here, maybe an exit down here. Red has way too easy of a time pushing back past this doorway. This should be the choke. The other thing I noticed a lot of is players kind of take the path of least resistance and the shortest route most of the time, and you try to balance that by, like, making longer routes really strong, a lot of cover, a lot of, you know, penetration into the enemy area, which is what I did down here. I try to make it so, like, this is a really long route, but you are past the point, you're behind it almost. But the problem is you're coming out on such low ground that you have all this here, you have this really tight choke here. It's not quite as beneficial, so I'm thinking about maybe even making this come out as like an upper area with like a drop down, And that would also make it so red can't push back through this way. Because right now, red is just having a million ways around blue. And that's not what we want. The other thing is, again, about the shortest route, the path of least resistance, is everybody tends to go this way. I did not intend for this to be the main route after you take A. I kind of thought this would be the big route, but that's not the case, and it's my fault. I have not made this beneficial enough. Maybe I need to raise it up a little bit. Maybe I need to move it over a tiny bit more so it's here. Like flow-wise, everybody wants to go this way, and it's kind of tight and convoluted. People tend to put a sentry gun up here. Even just putting a wall right here that would block it might help that a little bit. But a lot of the fighting tends to be in these little tight, choky areas rather than in the big open courtyards that you think the fighting would happen in. And it's because there's so much cover, because there's so many different ways around it. Red is utilizing that to their advantage instead of just holding back. It's also like as you're pushing through this big giant open window, I'm noticing like a demo man can stand here, sticky trap right here, anybody coming to this door is just instantly nuked. They could be over here, they could be up on the point, and they can keep an eye on that really easily. So I'm thinking maybe even blocking this off partially more, or maybe even just enclosing this entirely with glass so it's still visible. You can still see a push coming through, but you can't attack people there. So you kind of get an early warning for red that there's somebody coming, but you have to come over this way and fight them here. Now, that said, blue's still going to have a lot of low ground disadvantage, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in this regard. But overall, I think it's everything needs to get simplified a bit, and I think I need to take things back a step to try to reassess the flow of the map, especially these connectors. I think that's primary. I think this area is fun to fight in. It's not bad, but it's all the connectors from A to B are the issue, and I might just need to remove this entirely and start from scratch. That might be what has to happen. I don't know yet. I kind of go with the flow. And then I think that combined with a shorter respawn time, blue having a little bit more height advantage, I think it's going to be a lot easier to take B, but not a cakewalk. And that's always the balance you're trying to find with this kind of map, especially multi-stage. You don't want it to be impossible to defend, but you don't want it to be too easy to defend either. So there's always a balance. You want attackers to feel like they have the opportunity to push B semi-regularly without defenders feeling like they never get a chance to actually hold ground. So there's going to be some adjustments. I think giving blue some height advantage, maybe readjusting this whole side over here and giving them like a little upper building that's maybe on the level with this. Maybe that would help. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to probably axe a whole bunch of stuff. I kind of like this area, but maybe everything past this point I might delete again. And that's kind of the nature of mapping. Making those hard cuts, making the decision to cut work that you've done is very, very important, especially in this early stage. I don't want to be committed to anything. There may have been a slight overcorrection with the cover here that makes it too easy to defend now. I'm not quite sure. Once we get things balanced a little bit, I'm gonna not adjust too much, I think, on this building for this next test. I'm going to try to give blue more advantages while retaining red's ability to defend from the point itself. And then we'll see how things go. And if I need to adjust further, then we'll do that. We don't want to change too many variables at the same time. Like, we don't want to make it harder to defend and easier to attack, because then it might overcorrect in the other direction. We want to make it a little easier to attack or a lot easier to attack, but still just as easy to defend. And then there's an interesting kind of back and forth fight. I'm also tempted. Right now, the flow coming out of red spawn is they all tend to just come this way. This has become the main route out of red spawn to like push into A, like if they're setting up, anything like that, which makes sense. You come down, you're not going to go up and then drop over, so maybe I need to adjust some of the flow of that a little bit, because I'd almost like to make this a drop down here. Like leave this here, but maybe raise something up in here and make it so it's attacker only. But you don't want defenders to hit a dead end that often either, especially on rollouts, because that's just really frustrating. But yeah, right now the rollout's just really strange for reds. That's something I'm going to keep an eye on and maybe adjust in the future. Overall, I think the whole idea is going to just be simplify, simplify, simplify. I'm just going to completely get rid of this flank. It's not used enough. It's not needed. I did it as an experiment. The only time I ever see it getting used is I saw a spy take this route and get behind everybody who had already taken A. So that's the last thing I want. I don't want that route to be used in that regard. I think A is easy enough to attack that we want to make it somewhat decent. Right now, defenders can hold it pretty well, and they don't need that extra boost to get behind and then have access to this whole back area. We want this to be mostly blue territory, because blue needs to have territory. So I think that's about it. We try to test most Fridays. If you would like to get in on testing this and helping me get some feedback, join my Discord server. Link is in the description. And huge shout out to Agent Maxwell and Allison and all these other fine nerds for supporting me on Patreon, helping enable me to do all this fun stuff and get to put a lot of time and energy into it. I really appreciate it. If you'd like to support me, I would greatly appreciate it as well. I'll, you can have a shout out at the end of these videos, get some special perks in my Discord server and all that. See some behind the scenes on the other project that I'm started that's not quite ready to talk about yet, but hopefully very soon. But thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.
Mission ends in 10 seconds.